and then we can kick off in a second. Right, great. Okay, so welcome everybody to the Sigstore community meeting. I shall share the agenda. If you don't have the agenda, okay, the best thing to do is, rather than grant access to the doc, is go to Sigstore, github.com/Sigstore/community, and in there you'll see a Google Calendar invite. If you click on that, it will populate a calendar entry for you, and then if you go via that entry to the community meeting minutes, it'll automatically grant you access. So that's the best way to get access to the minutes. Right, let's share this. Okay, so yeah, please add your name if you can. And there is an agenda there. If you want to get anything in that's prudent to be discussed, please do add. Let's kick off. So office hours. Do we have an office hours this week? Do you plan to do anything, Dan, at all?
Not this week. We had one last week. I'll try to get another one next week, though.
Sure. How did it go? I'm just going to close my door for you.
Not too much attendance. A couple of people came in with questions.
Okay. And so, yeah, we've also got our Sigstore key signing ceremony event that's going to be happening, and it's going to be broadcasted live. And I think it's the 18th, isn't it, Dan?
Yeah, so it's next Friday.
Next Friday.
2 o'clock in the afternoon, East Coast time, so it should be still friendly enough for people in Europe.
Awesome. So if you don't know what that's about, the link in the community doc will take you through to a blog post that Dan wrote that describes that. But essentially, there's going to be 5 individuals that have all got 2 UBI keys, and then we're going to do a tough style co-signing to create the root keys for Keylime's wrong project for Sigstore's infrastructure. So and that's going to be broadcasted live. The key signing is actually going to be all of the tough signing materials are going to be in a repository. So we're going to encourage people to fork that as a kind of like a sort of a transparent form of us sort of being accountable for what we've done, so to say, for this being transparent. So it's pretty exciting stuff. Okay, Iv, a lightning presentation. Is that you, Dev?
Yes, sir. Hello, everyone. I'm going to make this as quick as we possibly can. So I'm going to share my screen, and it's asking me if it's okay to take over.
Yeah. Let me stop presenting. There we go. All yours.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, so some of you on the call will know who we are, what we're doing. Some of you won't. As quickly as I possibly can, we have been working with Google and Red Hat over the last 4 weeks to try and understand some things about how to grow Sigstore. We could say lots of things about it. There's lots of ways to sort of talk about what we're doing, but I will just crack on. This is our final presentation, or actually this is a redux of our final presentation. This will the full presentation will be available to everybody to read. There's quite a lot of it, and we welcome feedback and once people have digested it. But for right now, we're just going to give you a super quick top line. If any of it sounds a bit out of context or like what the hell is this and why the hell is this, it's probably because the full document kind of takes you through the picture. But what are we trying to do? So the goal of the 4 weeks for us was to look at ways to improve the adoption of Sigstore. What we've tried to do in this particular document, which summarizes everything, is answer a few of these questions. Thank you, Luke, for this first question. We sort of basically stole that off you. How do we get people to take their vitamins, right? Thinking of a security product as a vitamin, how do we get people to take them? How do we make it easy to do? How do we promote the benefits of these kinds of things? And then there's a kind of a key question for Sigstore and the community about what you need to do first, what should you do next. There's so many things you could do to kind of grow it, to get it out in the world. So it's a question of like ordering it a little bit. So we've tried to answer those questions. We've tried to answer it by jumping forward into the future a little bit, to look at what do we want the future of Sigstore to be like? Where could the safety of supply chains actually be in a few years' time? How all of this has come together for us is several weeks of interviewing people that may or may not be associated with this sort of technology, with this sort of product, trying to understand their needs, wants, behaviors, and how, if we meet those needs and wants and whatever else, if we're able to meet those and position this in such a way that it fulfills those needs, that it can grow. So a potential vision for us to look towards is that we want Sigstore to be the trusted standard for signing and verifying software. That's the kind of thing to aim for, if you like. And the way we get there is through sort of Sigstore being a trustworthy institution providing responsible services that improve supply chain security for everyone. So this sentiment here on this screen is like, this is reflecting back from people what they wanted, what they asked for, you know, what they need from stuff like this. You know, I need to be able to trust the institution. You know, I need this to be easily accessible for everyone, and so on and so forth. So building that back into a mission, this is where we are. Why might people value Sigstore? So what are people looking for actually in a product? Well, for instance, Sigstore, you know, has proven that it can make supply chains safer. You know, if you can do that for me, if you can prove that you can make supply chains safer, then I'm very likely to value Sigstore and therefore to use it. Sigstore as production grade, another thing that came up for us quite a few times. So proving that Sigstore is production grade, it's ready to roll out tomorrow, and you can use it at scale on anything you want. Open source, easy to integrate with. These are the kind of things that people are looking for. And again, Sigstore is a trustworthy institution. So diving down a little bit more into kind of how Sigstore can make these things come to pass, we're going to really quickly talk about strategic pillars. So in other words, these are things that if you use these concepts as checks and balances for the new things that you create, or the ways that you describe Sigstore, if you check and balance against these things, you are more likely to kind of be going in a direction that other people are responsive to. So we think Sigstore should try to achieve understanding. So that means a low barrier to entry. That means cultivating social proof, so showing that it works, and showing that it's safe and that it has impact. We think Sigstore should try to achieve usability, so that it's convenient, that it's compatible, that the barrier to entry is really low for lots of different types of people, not just security specialists. We think Sigstore should also try to achieve longevity, and this is a really important guiding factor in thinking about this product and its success for sort of mitigating supply chain attacks, which is it needs to be working towards being a standard, an industry standard. This can take some years, so we need to support the project and have all of the kind of the organizational tools in place to be able to, for it to live for that length of time. We're talking about years, not months, to retain its independence and make sure that it's something that people can recognize as an open source tool, and make sure that it's extensible so that it can be built upon and it can be integrated with other stuff as well. So those are our strategic pillars, if you like. And I'll hand over to Peter, who's going to talk you through how we get there.
Hi, I'm Peter. Deb, can you go to the next slide? Cool. So I'm just going to talk quickly through some bits of a potential roadmap. I say potential because delivery projects and delivery teams and people delivering work often discover things that strategies never even thought of because the real world changes, which is wonderful. So we broke down this potential roadmap into 3 key phases, what we call now, near, and next. And now is just some immediate goals of setting the foundations for scale. And the bits we focused on in the roadmap are the things that complement the work that the community is naturally doing. So things like starting to become increasing the trustworthiness of Sigstore through a key signing ceremony, which is carried out on the web and using with bits of trust, etc., is part of that. But there's other things that we think need to happen alongside that from what we learned in the research. So immediately in the foundations for scale, there's some impactful communication for specific audiences. So outside the immediate community onto other actors like policy audiences, large organizations, commercial security tools developers. Having a clear vision and charter, which was developed with the community, so something everyone can believe in, get behind, use to guide decisions, a threat model, which will guide lots of activity, and we think will help other people start to help them understand how and where to implement Sigstore's capabilities alongside the rest of their security framework, and also guide things like the creation of monitors. Some of the things in there would be things like creating a new website. Obviously, we've done a mock-up of those things. It's nice to see these things and see what they might look like. It's a new lo-fi concept, though. And Dev, if we go to the next slide. And then in near, so about 12 months, we reckon the near bit would be 12-month goals. So maturing the offering, so enhancing the current product. So building some of the service wrappers around the product. Building a broader network, not just the community, but the network around the community of influencers, of funders, of, let's say, commercial security tools, intelligence agencies. Now, this is critical infrastructure. We need to make sure it's going to be robust and critical for the long term. And then if you look at the next slide, and building that trustworthy organization. So some of the things we could see in here, for example, was around in helping to build that network and mature the product. Things like guidelines for trust indicators. So we've done a little mock-up there of a security tool being used within an organization which implements a US government security policy and uses that to guide the checks on Sigstore for a particular artifact as a developer is trying to incorporate it in a product. In this case, they're being told it's not on their trusted list, or the signature is not on their trusted list, but they can proceed because this is a low-risk project, and that's how the security settings have been set up. There'll be lots of different guidance around trust indicators we can see as we're looking at those things that can be developed and could be built out through a community like this. Other bits in there were growing the organisation, so starting to set down some legal basis for the organisation, more governance charters around the community in the open source areas, sustainable funding models, and things like that. And the next one. And then driving scale. So as we get maturity, that's a great point where we can actually strongly drive the scale of the Sigstore and get the increased adoption and that creating that flywheel effect of things going on. So both through large implementations, one of the bits we think could happen in the maturing section is building an evidence gathering mechanism, which helps secure those large implementations. And then there's evidence to say, we can show you this works because here's evidence it works. Here's people talking about it. Here's evidence we've captured of mitigating risks. Again, using things like that evidence and the new material and the strength of the product to embed within policy and standards, and supporting the long term, because as the large actors come along, as large policy recommendations come in, there's a long tail of small and mid-sized software development houses and software development ecosystems that might need support so they don't get left behind by such a big change. And so we continue that fair and competitive market for open source software. And again, just a little mock-up there showing, for example, of that time where GitHub receives sufficient pressure from its users and from the market that it might have an integration with Sigstore. So as you're looking at some code in a repo, you get a provenance check on that code alongside all of your things. I think that was the last of my slides. I say there's a lot more in the detail, but we do want to go quite fast because we know everyone's pressed for time. I'll now pass over to Simon.
Thanks, Peter. So I'm Simon. The final section that we're presenting for you guys today is about success indicators. So overall question, given you're implementing all of these changes and move forward in the future, how do you know you're moving in the right direction? And we've suggested two sort of large buckets of metrics and success indicators. The first one is, tangible, quantifiable metrics. So Dev, if you could go, thank you. And they fall under sort of four major categories, right? So the first one is Sigstore activity itself. Really to evaluate how quickly and rapidly Sigstore is being adopted. And this goes beyond just numbers of signatures, for example. And what we really wanted to do was create these metrics that also align with the pillars of success. So if you look at things like variety of project dependence, variety of organizations sponsoring Sigstore, and number of services built on top of the transparent logs, for example, you see a much more representative group of whether Sigstore is a trusted institution that is seen as independent. And that extends to the network and community activity as the second major category, to make sure it remains empowered and open source. So you're looking at things like numbers of contributors and watchers, where they're geographically and sort of sectorally distributed, and how many independent monitors are currently watching the logs and moderating that. The third one is really about sort of broadcast and how it's being adopted as a new standard. So on one hand, that's how often is Sigstore being mentioned in sort of press and news articles and where, but also, you know, how often is it being mentioned in governmental supply chain security guidance, in private organizations, policy documents to show the uptick. And sort of the last one, which is almost like a holy grail of this, which to be honest, we weren't able to find very many sort of robust indicators of what this might be, is the quantifying the direct impact of Sigstore on supply chain security, and who is benefiting from that. And one of the recommendations we make is that it may behoove Sigstore to sponsor, whether through sort of putting people on it through resources, or even partnerships with people who have a stake in this, into how this impact could be measured. And the second type of metric is a little different. These are things that we're calling hallmark events. So you can think of hallmark events as sort of like news stories of these sort of larger objectives. They are the get the United States to the moon of the space race, right? And these kind of moonshots, specifically purposely named, are really specific investments of time and resources that are both indicative of success and a way to galvanize efforts, the community, and even sort of potential funders in the future. So, and they can break down in products. So you can see as enhance the product, you can see one major one being Sigstore tooling is integrated into Git actions, for example. Or if you're building out the organization, so you can see a big hallmark being Sigstore as an independent organization hires its first employee. Or Google and Linux are no longer make up the majority of funding support. Or sort of, if you want a real moonshot, signing through Sigstore is integrated into governmental procurement requirements around the globe. We originally thought of mocking up an illustration of sort of the US president, whether it's Biden or some other sort of guess of who that might be, like slamming their fist on the table and shouting, "But damn it, if I don't sign this with Sigstore, how will the American people know it's from me?" You know, that is maybe it's too far-fetched, but maybe not. I mean, you can realistically see a situation in sort of the distant future where official releases from institutions where you want some kind of official release is backed by a transparent blog. Exactly. Sort of tweets potentially from sort of certified accounts maybe are signed by Sigstore. And so that kind of verification mentality and thinking that far ahead really is sort of a fun but actually effective way to galvanize efforts within the community and the project itself. Because what we're really building for in this is that Sigstore, to repeat it again, what we said in the future, is a globally adopted signing and verification standard. So thank you so much. That was a very super fast fly through of our work. There is another document with substantially more weight where we go in much more detail into a lot of recommendations we share with you today. We will, of course, post it in the sort of Slack channel. And if you have any questions specifically for us, you can either, I mean, we're all in the Slack channel, so you can either ping us directly there, or you can email sort of projectsbyif at hello@projectsbyif, and we'll respond to you there as well. Thanks so much. That is it from us.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. Really shaping up well. So it's going to be immensely useful. Great. Okay. So any quick questions or anything Any sort of burning observation? I noticed we've got a few things. If not, I'll chop on quickly. Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to go relatively quickly through the project roundup because I've noticed a couple of demos appeared. Okay. So Recore 0.2.0. Sorry, let me share the community meter notes. So 0.2.0 will be shipping very soon. Okay, I just need to clean up the documentation a bit and just work on how we're going to do some dog food sign-in for that. Probably we'll do it, get a few of us to sign that off and put a T-log entry up for now. And then we can always render that better in the future. So yeah, that will be happening, I expect this week. 0.2.0 will be out. 0.1.0 release planning for Fulcio is underway. So we're going to hopefully cut our first release of Fulcio soon. Okay. Cosine. So Dan, any project stuff before Azra does a demo?
Nope, last release was last week. I think Jake's here
Yeah,
though.
That was 5.0, wasn't it? 0.5.0.
Yep, and we're going to be getting help from Carlos going forward. Welcome, Carlos.
Yeah, thanks for the help.
Oh, Carlos is on the call. Yeah, actually, so Carlos is our new release manager who's just getting sort of bootstrapping himself into our release procedures, which we don't have any. So he's here to give us some and help out there. Cool. Okay, so Azra, you're on the call.
Yep, I'm on the call.
Yeah, great.
It's also, if you want to do the project roundup and I'll do a demo at the end, that's totally fine.
Maybe we'll do that. So let me check. How long do you need, Azra?
Just like 5 minutes.
Okay, and Shripad, how long do you need for your demo?
Yeah, like 5 minutes should be fine, I guess.
Okay, great. So I'll make sure I keep 10 minutes for you both. Okay, we're looking good. We're looking good for time. Right. So cosine. So kitchen sink, which is what we call Sigstore. There's nothing really notable there. I do need to work on the verification bit more. And if anybody's interested in discussing that, I'm certainly happy to show you what I have and we can collaborate. I know there's some refactoring as well around the sign-in implementation and some discussion between Bob and Jake, but there's nothing really substantial there. Ruby plugin again, I cannot, this is another one that's waiting for me to get my hands out my pockets and finish that. I do plan to sort of change of approach there on how we're doing that. So, but nothing to really update you about for this week. Maven, I guess there's no updates there, Bob?
No.
No, okay. Crate sign-in sget. So I have actually been looking into the crates code, looking at their script and how they pull down the various nightly releases and so forth, and looking at how we can implement there. Don't really have anything in a Dockers yet, but I'll start to sketch something out soon. Release engineering, so introduce Carlos. Carlos, you want to say anything at all?
Yeah, hello, my name is Carlos. I'm trying to help here in the release engineer part. I contribute to other open source projects like Kubernetes and Helm and others. I'm trying to set up everything here. I just have one update. I'm gonna ping you some folks in the channel, in the Slack channel, to start creating the release documents process for Recore, Fulcio, Cosine, and Sigstore itself. And to make it clear the process, how to make the release and all this stuff. But I would like to ask, for if we are planning to release Fulcio this week, I'd like to be together to learn how this release is going to be made and create the document on the fly.
Sure, sounds good. Yeah, makes sense. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Okay, Azra, Wasm World, anything interested in you there?
We got some feedback. Actually just today, the latest update is after we had our presentation. We have some more feedback that before we do a vote on whether this should become a formal WASM proposal, that we need some more support from the community. And some more drive on how to justify that this is an actual feature there. So I guess this is a shout out for support. If you know anyone who's interested, or if you yourself are interested, I'll post the link here. They want to see some more support and discussion on this issue.
Brilliant. Okay, and I can see somebody's popped in Red Hat PyPy. Yeah, okay, yeah. So we had a meeting with some folks from the Python Foundation. Well, actually, there was some Python core developers. Had a really, really good talk with them about signing in general. Okay, so extending what they already have. So they already have a PEP, which implements TUF. So they implement TUF, and they have a PEP to look at how to extend that to developers. So the short story of this was that they're going to set up a working group around this. Okay, so we can actually participate in this working group, which is really good. So we can really start to get some traction underway. And yeah, this was a call that some other folks that I know in Red Hat were quite interested in kicking this off as well, because Ansible and OpenStack are two projects that utilize that infrastructure a lot. So so yeah, there was a really good call there. Trishank, you were on that call. Did you want to chip in 2 cents at all, or?
Yeah, no, it was a good call. I agree.
Yeah.
I think for the future, yeah, the working group, and they have two things in particular with how to use Sigstore. One is obviously using Fulcio, right, to distribute developer keys. I think it'll be a great use.
Awesome. Okay, so let's jump into Azra. We'll pass the wheel over to you.
All right, let's see if I can. I'm going to present my terminal here. So just what's going on here is that it's kind of rudimentary. Still haven't written any tests, and the code's kind of just like, let's get something done. But what I can do is I can sign collaboratively, and I have not done the verification piece yet, but I can sign collaboratively some TUF metadata on a registry and reference images as targets to sign. So what I have here is this first initialization that someone can run. They can add public keys for the two roots, add a threshold for the roots, add some target public keys and timestamp public keys. And then for the sake of time, you don't have to do this in the same line, but I'm assuming I have one of the root keys. So I'm going to sign with one of the private keys. I'm going to upload. So I'm typing my password. And what you see here is verification error. I don't have enough signatures because my threshold is 2. So what it did was it uploaded to a staged well-known.tuf. So it's not complete yet. Now what I can do is on a different, I could be like, now I'm wearing a different hat. I'm like Hat Alice or something. And I'm also going to go in and I have the other public key as like a separate maintainer. And I'm going to sign the root as well here. So this could happen like not on the same computer. And what you see here is now my root is signed, but now I have a verification error on targets because I have not signed my targets yet. I haven't even added any targets. I'll show you the metadata at the end just for the sake of time. But what I can do to add a target is sign and snapshot. So I'll do a sign and snapshot, give it a target, and give it the target key. For simplicity, I don't have a separate snapshot key. That's something we can do later, but I figure for simplicity, we can have a simplified version. So now I've signed the targets and snapshotted, but my metadata verification still failed. And as you notice, I'm still uploading to stage. So that's what's happening. I'm iterating on this stage thing, but I have insufficient signatures for my timestamp. So what I'm still missing here is to do like a heartbeat timestamp that will, say like, what are the current versions? So what I'll do here is run the timestamp command with my timestamp key. Again, this could happen on someone else's, someone else's a thing. And this could also be a KMS. It's pretty much whatever cosign supports, this thing would support. So now we'll run the timestamp command, sign that. And then what you should see, yay, metadata was verified. So now what we have here is that everything is sound for now and has been uploaded to well-known, not staged anymore. So now what I can do is, let me go show you what we just did. Pull this and show you the JSON. Now what we have here is there's some like iffiness on version numbers that I'm like still working through right now, but at the very top, you can see my root metadata with 2 signatures because my threshold was 2. I have a sorry, this is so hard to read. I have all the root metadata with 2 keys that I trust, 1 for each of the rest of the roles. I have a snapshot here that is, enforcing my root and targets version. And I have my target here, which is this image over here with this SHA. So everything's been signed. This timestamp has been signed. And that's the current demo. There is no verification yet. And there's a bunch of little tiny bugs, but yep.
Cool. I've a quick question, Asra. So I've been looking at doing something similar, but with keyless, so OIDC emails. So have you thought about doing that, or when you have thought about it, have you thought of possible snags or hitches that we might need to work around, or it seems like a logical step to take?
Yeah, I've thought about that as like how will this work? Will we be able, like it's definitely buildable on top of this infrastructure. What I think what would need to be done is that you see how like over here my root metadata is specifying the keys for all my roles or all the keys over here. There's a bunch of keys in here like with the public. This is a ECDSA, so this is like the marshaled X and Y and like public key parameters. So this is a certain key type, right? So what I'm thinking is we can change that key type to become an OIDC key type. And the public information that it includes will be the email identifier, and then we can attach a certificate from Pulsio. So that was my initial thought on it. I don't know if it's the correct way to do things, but that seems like it could work. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking as well. We could even have a signature which can be validated against that public key, which can be tied to that open identity. I'm just thinking of how we sort of stack all this, as we are signing targets and so forth.
Yeah, I think it's like everything, the verification and like the signing is all like going to be like, it's currently also using cosign's signer types, so I think it's very easily swappable out as long as we can support this like new type kind of key type, and everything else is on us to implement.
I've spoken to Dan about this a few times. Can we get this working outside of a registry content? Okay. So, I mean, registries are the preferred medium, but then if somebody has a repo or an EC2 bucket or, some medium where they store a release, is that, do you see that as something that's workable there, or are we really screwed because we're detached? Or
no, I mean, honestly, like it was harder to put it on the registry than to do what you asked for. So they could even like use our libraries, and it's not really attached to the registry beyond an upload, and we can easily make that like modularized. Maybe we can do this in Sigstore then as well. Yeah, we could put the tough library in Sigstore. Because a lot of this will be very useful for the keyless sign-in part of what we were talking about before with the Python Foundation work as well. I see. Yeah. So I could split this up to have like the registry related stuff only in cosign, and then put the rest of the tough libraries up in Kitchen. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Just to jump back a second, I think there is one problem we might have glossed over quickly. Like this doesn't have to go in a container registry, but I think it does have to go next to where the artifacts are.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. So
they wouldn't really work, but like GCS would or PyPy would.
I see. Yeah. So you need that letterbox to put the signature to attach. Yeah. Yeah. Very much. Yeah. Yeah, because they do have that extra. There is some sort of slot that we can utilize, isn't there, in the Python index? So, yeah. Cool. Okay, that's brilliant. Thanks, Asra. Okay. Tripad, you have a demo as well. Do you want to? You should be able to share and.
Yeah, sure. Let me see. Okay, it's asking me for this. Yes. It says I can't share the screen. Let me change it. Sorry about that. Just trying to share. Yeah. Can you see the screen? I think it should be.
Yep.
Okay, so
See
this
that
is
now?
so it's a simple demo where I have one repository with my application code, and the idea here is to see how we can use cosine verification in the DevSecOps, right? I mean, our existing DevSecOps pipeline, they find out if there are any vulnerabilities in the code, if there are any license issues. In this one, we are trying to basically extend it to see how we can verify the dependencies that are in your code, right? So this is my application. This is a Docker file. I have some base images that I'm using. So there is one, this is a multi-stage Docker file. So I'm using one stage to build the image and another stage to basically deploy this application, right? And well, in this one, we are basically adding this verification of this base image in the pipeline. So this particular repository is hooked to this Tecton pipeline. So anytime we create a pull request or create any change, it will trigger that pipeline, right? And this pipeline is basically, I have pushed it on the, I'll share this link so anyone, you can try this link, right? So it has basically very simple, it's a simple pipeline. So whenever it triggers the pipeline, it clones the repository. It does a kind of a scanning of all the dependencies. So it looks in the Docker file, what images you are using, what packages you are bringing, and it essentially generates a software bill of material, right? And once we have that material, we have this cosine verify another stage, which identify the base images at the moment, right? It identify what all the base images that you are using, and then verify them against using cosine if these base images are signed properly. And then it notifies a developer in the form of comments and drives the status of this pull request about the findings. Right? So let me quickly show you. So these two base images that are there, these both are signed, and right now I basically signed them a priori and set it up. But if I basically go and change this, let's say I put it 115, right? As a developer, I don't have knowledge whether that particular image is signed or not, right? I'm just creating a change request. And when I create this change request, this essentially will trigger the pipeline where we are showing all this, the analytic, the layout that I just described. It is doing the clone and scan and everything. In the interest of time, I can just show you the previous pull request that I ran. Right. So once the pull request essentially that pipeline finishes, it gives the feedback to the developer that we verified, we ran some verification, and in this particular Docker file, you are using this base image, which is not properly signed, right? The other base image is signed. And if, as a developer, I can basically go ahead and fix that my basically dependencies, and I should basically get the notification that all my base images that I'm using for building my application, they are signed. And it also basically drives the gate, so you can block the pull request if your dependencies are not signed properly. And again, this is the first step. The idea is essentially to come up to recommend developer, right? Instead of right now, we are just telling them the problem that okay, this is the image that has not been signed, but can we recommend developer that you should instead use this particular image which is signed. And the second is it can go to the package level also, right? We can right now it is doing it at the image level, but in the BOM we'll also have these packages, like if you are installing Python or Node. So we can also verify once we have this infrastructure where all the packages are getting signed, we can use the same mechanisms to verify whether those packages have the proper signatures and not. And we can essentially enforce them in the development workflow. So yeah, I think that's pretty much what I had to present. Any feedback, any comments? I think that would be good.
Yeah. So Looks really cool. I'm interested. How do you establish those green ticks? What's working behind the scenes there?
Oh, right. So in this particular one, in this pipeline, let me actually.
So that's a Tecton pipeline.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a Tecton pipeline, and I have basically mounted the cosine. It basically needs this public key to be mounted as a secret, right?
Okay.
And then in the cosine verify task, we basically take the image, we identify what base images you are using, and then we call cosine verify on those base images.
I see.
Basically,
Okay.
check if those images are signed or not. If they are signed, we capture that result, and then this is basically just a reporting that whatever findings we get, whatever the exist status of the cosine, based on that we drive these statuses here.
So I'm just thinking it might be useful for you to implement chains here as well.
Yes.
So,
yeah. So, that would be for building the images, right? It's part of like when you're building, we automatically build.
yeah, you can sign there as well.
Right. Yeah, in this one, I'm basically not signing, I'm just verifying. But yeah, you are right. I think we can use chain and we can.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. So because of course you're loading the existing keys into the.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. So is there anything that you need in Sigstore? Do you plan to is there anything you need to upstream into Sigstore or your?
Yeah, I mean, I'm basically, I'll need that feedback from you that what we can upstream from this, right? So this particular pipeline is, I'll share the link on the Slack. It's there. I think we can try it.
Okay, awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, drop the link into the community minutes as well.
Yeah, sure. I'll do that. The other thing that I was trying is this signing, basically keyless signing in the framework, right? Is there a way we can do that? Because right now, if we do the keyless, it opens up the browser and we need a human in the loop, right? But if you're doing it completely automated, right?
Sure. Yeah. So unattended sign-in. Good point. Yeah. So there's several things there. This is some work that Dan's been doing with Spiffy and Spire.
Okay.
Where there's a machine identity attestation that leverages Spiffy Spire, and there's also device flow as well, which is another sort of similar unattended system. But I'd say the Spire one's definitely more exciting because you can federate across different clouds then and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. You're saying, Dan, something? I think you're on there.
Yeah, so there's like two ways, like Luke was saying. We have one way that's supported now. It only works on GCP, but we can add support for other cloud providers if they expose like short-term OIDC credentials. GCP does stuff like this. If you're running on a compute VM or something, you can get an identity token for that VM, and then we can grant certificates for that, which works today completely keylessly. The email address would be tied to like the virtual machine or whatever you're running on Google Cloud Platform. I think Azure and Amazon have equivalents. I just don't know enough to try it out. And then Spiffy, Spire work kind of in a cross-world federated manner, which we're still working on now.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
And there's also some Git sign-in stuff that it might be useful to you to look at that Dan and Mark worked on as well.
Okay.
So maybe you're working on Git Secure, weren't you? Was that your project?
Yeah. So it's basically code name as Git Secure. Yeah.
That way you can verify.
Right.
Git commits are signed.
Yeah. Basically, the idea is essentially we need to ensure the supply chain secure everything in the industry. Right.
Sure.
All these, like once we have the packages signing and everything, we want to do this verification. But I think the value comes if we, instead of just telling the user that you have problem, if we can recommend them the one which is signed and which is proper, right? Which is a slightly harder problem. How we come up with that recommendation. So, but I think that will be useful.
Sure. Awesome. Great.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Shripad. Okay. So let me just glance back at the agenda. So I think we've got through everything. We have a few minutes left if there's any burning topics or something that has occurred to someone as the meeting's been going on that we didn't discuss. Now's the time. Or if there's likewise, if there's anybody that's new to the meeting and you want to say hi, you know, just say what your interest is in the project, then we can think about how we can support you and perhaps, you know, get an office hours set up. No, okay, great. So remember the 18th, put that in your diary for the Sigstore sign-in party. It's going to be live streamed, okay, and then expect to see lots of the fork number increment upwards as people fork the sign-in repository. And yeah, and I will see you all in Slack and next week. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.